Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for the recap of the entirety of the Tour de France men's race being recapped. As we normally do it, we're going to go through all the stage winners, the weeks, what do we like about the weeks, discuss the parcours, some of the additions, Montmartre, I think the numbers for that say it all. We'll go through things like that, what our favorite or at least most memorable and least memorable stages were, and then talk about the big topics. And I think the big topic really was UAE and Pogacar against Visma and how that maybe boiled up and then petered out during the race. We'll talk about other GC riders, some breakout riders, which we had quite a lot of in the top 10 on GC. I must say, a lot of new top 10 GC riders in this year's Tour de France. The points classification, discuss that, as well as some odds and ends from this Tour de France. This episode is brought to you by our show partner, Join Cycling. Big credits to Join Cycling being with us throughout the year. I just want to give them a shout out, given that we're recapping the tour, also to, they make all our tour coverage possible. Benji coming to Andorra possible, etc. How are you feeling, Benji, 4 days on from the event?
Pretty good. It feels like it never ended because the Tour de France Van Wijk Zwift is ongoing, so it's like there's still a Tour de France going on, just a different one at this point. So it's not like it's we're retired for a week. It doesn't happen that way. But just overall, I think I'll give my opinion on the whole Tour de France by the end of this, but I can't wait to get into the recap because sometimes we record the full recap of a Grand Tour the day after, which then sometimes you don't have enough time to process every part of it. Now I feel like I've processed every aspect of it, and I feel like deep diving into what could Visma have done better? What's with UAE? Did they have weaknesses throughout the race? The breakout riders, like you mentioned, where do we see them going in 1 year, 2 year, 3 years? What are the possibilities of Remco Evenepoel in the future? Hypothetically, if he goes to Red Bull BORA hansgrohe, with Lipovic already podiuming the Tour de France. There's so many questions that I do want to dive into today, and I can't wait to get started. But Patrick, kick us off by going through the week one stage winners first, my friend.
The rapid fire recap of the stage winners. I want to see if people remember what happened. See if I remember what happened. Stage one, we're in the northeast of France, but we had no cobbles. Maybe it would have been, I'll start off straight away, Benji. I think it's wrong they went to the northeast of France, had 17 different permutations of exactly the same puncheur stage, and didn't have a cobble stage. I would rather have seen another cobble stage instead of another punchy hill finish, personally. It still would have suited the same riders, it just would have added variety. But stage one from Lille Metropole, we had crosswinds, Remco, Lipovic, Roglic get put on 30 seconds, Pog, Enrique Mas, Kevin Vauquelin and Vingegaard make it up. The Vingegaard pulls an echelon, but Jasper Philipsen, of course, Alpecin don't miss. He wins the first stage, takes the yellow jersey, takes 50 green jersey points. Johnny Milan and Merlier miss it, so Philipsen strikes a big blow for green there. Stage 2, Boulogne-sur-Mer, punchy finish. Some of the versatile sprinters teams pulled, but then it was too hard for them when Poggi and Van der Poel went. Van der Poel wins the sprint against the GC riders. Stage 3, classic sprint, Tim Merlier wins ahead of Johnny Milan coming out of the wheel. Stage 4 to Rouen, we have the Saint-Hilaire punchy finish. Visma try to split it on the descent into it, but Pogacar beats Van der Poel in the uphill sprint after Almeida does a magnificent job keeping it all together after Visma kept attacking with Jorgensen and co. Stage 5, the TT, we've not had any real GC gaps except for Stage 1 crosswinds. Remco wins, of course. Pogacar comes second. And the big news was Vingegaard losing a minute to Pogacar, a minute he will never get close to making up for the rest of this year's Tour de France. Pogacar also goes into the yellow jersey, which he would relinquish a couple of times. He'd lend it out from there on. Stage 6 to Ville-Normandie. Ben Healy gets into a group, first break stage, hilly stage, and just straight up ruins everybody in that break. Was just way stronger. Van der Poel just holds onto the yellow jersey by 1 second. And Pogacar wasn't too happy after the stage because Visma did pace to make it hard. Were they trying to put him in the jersey? Stage 7, Mur de Bretagne. Pogacar wins the sprint. Johnny Narvaez does a fantastic job. Again, doing the lead out, coming back. Remco was caught in two minds. Poggi takes yellow back. Van der Poel dropped. Van der Poel kind of finished for the rest of this tour from there on. Stage 8, classic sprint. Milan wins. Stage 9, classic sprint. Merlier wins. No crosswinds really, although I think one day Visma tried. Stage 10 breakaway, Ben Healy goes for yellow out of it. Simon Yates profits from that and wins yellow from the break. Visma try to isolate and attack Pogacar again. doesn't work. Adam Yates brings back Jorgensen. That's the end of week 1, Benji. How do you feel about it?
So in general, I feel like there's a few pointers here. First of all, obviously, Jonas Vingegaard losing a minute on that time trial, the Con time trial, that's a massive impact for the race. That's the rider that is the challenger in this Tour de France, because let's be honest about it, Pogacar came into this Tour de France with clear favoritism. If the challenger then loses time on the first time trial with a bad day, seemingly, then that's a feeling of, okay, we wanted this race to be close. This is the first indicator that it might not be by the end. But then later in that first 10 days, we see Almeida crashing out, which we don't like it, let's be clear. But it does put your pendulum a bit to the other side, where you then start to think, okay, how is this going to impact UAE in week 2 and week 3? Because that's the best domestique in the mountains for Tadej Pogacar in this race. So that's a potential impact there. So that's what evened out the odds a little bit, I would argue, in the first week. But there's so many other things that happened in this first week, like Remco Evenepoel losing time in that stage 1 was a first indicator of the thing we've seen all year, Patrick, that the team support of Quickstep and Remco's ability of positioning himself, just those two things, he doesn't get the right position before important moments 60-70% of the time, before small hills, before an echelon segment, for example, in stage 1, stuff like that. The team fell asleep and they didn't react enough, and at the end of the day, both him and Merlier end up losing the split on that first stage. So also potential stage win gone there. Now, another factor then is, I do want to mention that there are a few sprint stages in this first week where we note that either the run-in or the sprint itself was dangerously made by the organizers. So I want to convey that criticism again, that there was one sprint finish where there was literally a chicane with 350 meters to go and a corner on the finish. That's literally asking for riders to deviate from their line, because the fastest way through that chicane and through that corner at the finish is by deviating through your line. So that's something I do want to bring up again, that the Tour de France, the biggest race in the world, who has the financial capabilities to figure shit like this out, should be able to make sprint finishes safer than what it was in week 1, because there were crashes in those sprint finishes. Now, the last thing also when it comes to the green jersey, Patrick, let's be honest about it, we both kind of already knew that Mathieu van der Poel wasn't the kind of guy that would jump into bench sprints and go for the green jersey, but just in general, Jasper Philipsen crashing out in these first few days and not being in the race for the rest of it, that's a massive hit for the green jersey battle, right?
Yeah, it just really dampened that battle. I mean, maybe Milan, to be honest, I don't think he would have been close. Because with Alperson's strength with rouleurs, they would have got Philipsen in breakaways to take 20-point deltas. I mean, look at Groves. They got Groves, Ricard. I mean, Ricard and Van der Poel pull was it stage 8 or 9? They pull a Trofeo Baraki. They pull a team time trial of 2 for nearly the whole stage. And so I think, yeah, but shoulda, woulda, coulda. I would say week 1 of this Tour de France was the best week. It was a long week, 10 days. It does go to show, Benji, that like you put more mental credence into whether someone gets put on a 1-second gap or not on a punchy hill. And at the end of the day, that's irrelevant. For GC, it's more or less irrelevant. I mean, if Pogacar had taken 5 seconds because he dropped Vingegaard on Saint-Hilaire, and then Jorgensen pays full gas with Van der Poel, and then Pogacar takes 5 seconds plus some bonies, it would have felt in the moment as important emotionally for the spectators as almost a TT. But the reality is, Benji, I got a hot take for you. 1 minute, 4 seconds is more than 15 seconds.
Really?
And so losing more time is worse, even though it feels less climactic than seeing someone physically get dropped.
I get that. I 100% get that. But also in general, when it comes to the Visma Lisa bike strategy in week 1, got a lot of criticism on social media, let's be honest about it. And the way I saw that strategy personally was in a threefold manner. First of all, we know that Pogacar, fresh, is much more explosive than Jonas Vingegaard. Let's be honest about it. So firstly, if you make the stage harder, you would argue that the delta of explosiveness, so the difference in explosiveness between Tadej and Jonas, would reduce because they're both getting more tired. Now, on the road, I feel like we did notice that because Jonas was able to follow Tadej on multiple rather punchy finishes in this first week. Then on the second hand, it also led to the likes of Narvaez being dropped earlier, or a few domestiques from UAE being dropped earlier, reducing a potential lead out of UAE in those punchy hill stages, reducing the chances that Pogacar's attack can drop Vingegaard instantly. And we see in week 2 what happens if Pogacar does have the lead out on Otakam. So that's an indication there that this is an important aspect of trying to not lose as much time against Pogacar. But I think the most important part, Patrick, is the following. You try to throw shit at Tadej Pogacar every single day, hoping it results in either a weak moment, him forgetting to weed, a bad day, anything. Because in the Grand Tours that Tadej Pogacar has ridden, also the Giro last year, there's always a day where Pogacar did not have the best day of his life and was potentially vulnerable. The gravel stage last year, I'm still of the opinion that was not his best day of his life in the Giro last year. So we've not seen this be super effective in terms of like, okay, he's not going to lose 4 minutes as a consequence, but that's also something that Visma, in my opinion, was looking for. And I think the criticism that they got then in return was, okay, you're being so aggressive, it's going to backfire in week 2 and 3. Sure, that's a possibility. Riding aggressively in week 1 can lead to you capitulating in week 2, or for example, being aggressive in the first 4 days can lead to a slightly worse time trial, or Otakam losing more time than you expected to. But at the end of the day, the way I view it personally is, if you're Visma Leasebike, you don't try to create a strategy to lose by the least possible time. You try to create a strategy to increase your odds of winning, acknowledging the risk that it could lead to losing by more time if it fails. Does that sentence make sense?
Yeah, and I think that's what some, like even Remco himself, like missed. In the, if the strategy was to beat Remco and Lipovic, then of course it would be completely different. You ride more conservatively, you know Vingegaard has better watts per kilo, you don't do anything crazy, and you just go to the final climb, do a Skytrain lead out, ramp it up, and then he attacks. Okay, you do that. You're just the domestiques of Pogacar for 3 weeks. And if Pogacar's the best all-round rider in the world, then, I mean, we saw what happened on Plateau de Bay last year and on Isola. Everyone saw that. I think if Visma just started doing the like high pacing strategy, I mean, there was no stages for that. I think it's more the criticism, and maybe it's fair, Benji, is did going too hard in week 1 blow up the team?
Well, the way I perceive that is, on one end, yes, that can have its consequences, and it might have had it on Otakam, which I feel like is a valid criticism. But on the opposite side, what is the alternative strategy? Just riding to week 2, conservatively, not attacking Pogacar in week 1. In doing so, you will lose in week 2 on Otakam anyway, but by less time. Is that your goal? Losing the Tour de France by less time? No. I'm sorry, but that's not the goal here. The goal is to put pressure on Pogacar on multiple days throughout 2 weeks, hoping that one day it pays off. Because inherently, Tadej Pogacar is the better rider.
Yeah, he pushes the most watts of any of the GC riders by a lot. So
yeah,
but that was the first. Pardon?
The best Tadej Pogacar is a better rider than the best Jonas Vingegaard, based on the stats and races we've seen in the last 2 years.
Yeah. And he hasn't had a really bad day the last 2 years.
So if you ride conservatively, you're going to lose the Tour de France.
But even if on Halterkamp they're the same, the reality is Pogacar takes all the bonies. He then is going to... So he's going to win every sprint, uphill or down or flat. And then the flat TT, he's pushing way more watts because he's heavier. So even if their watts per kilo are the same, you still can't win. Unless you try to do something different or fatigue him or fatigue the team or create unpredictable situations, where we're going to get to that stage now. Stage 11 to Toulouse, Jonas Abrahamsen wins. He attacks out of neutral behind the jury car, gets in the break, and that break goes all the way. It was a huge fight. We saw Vingegaard attacking across the break. The break eventually goes. I think Niels Pollitt or oh no, it was Pogacar peeing, can't remember, when Vingegaard attacked. And in the final, Vingegaard attacks on a hill, Jorgensen goes again. And what we were just discussing, Benji, Pogacar crashes, and is it bad luck? Yes. Johannesson chops the shit out of him. Don't get me wrong. But why was he on the radio? Because Narvaez was making a mistake and made a mistake after the same race situation had happened 17 different times across the Dauphiné and the Tour de France. Like, because of the rolling attacks of Jorgensen and Vingegaard, the solution is you just set a tempo and chill out. And Pogacar was going on the radio to be like, just ride a tempo. Why are you attacking? And as he did that, he got chopped. And that's the closest Visma got to winning this Tour de France, Benji, is as Pogacar's falling down.
Yep, that is true. That's reality. Like, by the way, just to addition...
It sounds harsh, but that is literally the truth.
That is true. That is correct. I do want to add, Pogacar was actually already back from pissing when the Hilly and Jonas attack went, so just to add on to the conversation there. But also towards the end, sure, yes, that's true. Obviously, I think we've already brought this point across a few times. We've done it, both of us. If you want to win a Grand Tour or have the best chance of winning a Grand Tour, the first step is finishing the Grand Tour. So Pogacar crashing at the end of a stage like this has a consequence. And then the question is, okay, first of all, what are the consequences physically? And secondly, what happens on the road when the crash happens? And that second part, we see Visma waiting, the rest of the front group also waiting, every team taking accountability. No, not accountability. Every team trying to take credit on social media.
Patron, Ben Healy, Ben Healy, everyone claimed that they were the reason why they stopped in front.
That was really funny in my opinion.
Thank God Visma stopped. You know how embarrassing it would have been the next day.
It would have been crazy to imagine if Visma goes all in. Jonas and Matteo go to the front, start hammering it. Takes 17 seconds or something, and the next day they lose 2 minutes on autograph.
Jesus. They got lucky stopping. They got lucky stopping. Although who knows, maybe if they paced, Poggy would have been so tilted he would have had a worse Hautacam. Who knows? And before we get to Hautacam, if you want to ride up the Hautacam as fast as Tadej Pogacar, you know what you need. You need Join Cycling's training plans. And you say how you can build up to it. You may start with the recovery plan, which I did. You can progress then to the Lanterne Rouge plan, which is a great one. And with these plans, it's not really like one size fits all. Like Lanterne Rouge plan is the same difficulty for everybody. You have the Lanterne Rouge plan that is adjusted for your ability level, whether novice, amateur, intermediate, advanced, for your availability, how many hours you have each day. So it's the same type of plan, but it can be adjusted for you. That's the beauty of these plans. But then you can progress up to criteriums, Gran Fondos. There's specific plans for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of events, and I would really recommend you check it out. If you got something, especially if you're in Australia now, that's what I'm peaking for, Benji. TDU's not far away. It's just around the corner. TDU. We're about to tick over into August. The prep starts now, and that's the attitude you should have when you have events for in the future. The longer you start preparing with more consistency, with a Join Cycling training plan, the better your results will be. The less crazy you have to go with trying to crash, do training that's in like the last 3 weeks. If you prepare further out, you can prepare really, really well with one of Join's plans. So go and check it out through the link down below. 30-day free trial. You don't even need a credit card. Just download the app off the App Store. 30-day free trial. You're flying. And you see if you like it. And you see if 30 days is the long enough time to build a habit. So that's why we have the 30-day free trial. If you like it, you get a discounted annual plan afterwards. So thanks to Join Cycling. As always, if you've got a goal coming up, the best time to start preparing is today. And we can see Benji. I mean, he's smashing the Hautacam every night that I can see. Although I think Benji's a bad example because he just ignores what Join tells him and just like does a smash fest.
I have a proposal for Join Cycling. I need a Benji Naesen content plan.
The Benji Naesen plan is zone 5 every day.
That being said, zone 5 every day, was that what was happening on Otacam, Patrick? Because I'm looking at...
that was what Jonathan Narvaez was doing, and this was the end of the Tour de France GC, more or less. We had a very similar stage to Plata Day last year, where Pogacar put 30 seconds into Vingegaard. On the Soulor, Visma tried to start hard pacing. Campenaerts paces, drops Remco Evenepoel, drops Kevin Vauquelin. Whoa, looking good. Drops Matteo Jorgensen. And so when Sepp Kuss took over, Benoit had been in the break, UAE got Wellens ahead. When Kuss takes over, he slows down. He slows down just as Jonathan Narvaez is being dropped. He slows down, but the alternative was Yates was off the back, Jorgensen was off the back. They slow down, Yates starts pacing. Next climb, Yates paces again, Jorgensen drops again. And then Hautacam, the teammates didn't really matter anymore because at the bottom, Tim Wellens, who'd been in the breakaway, he does the Domoncy Dauphiné nuclear lead out, and him and Narvaez finishes it off and just launches Pogacar at 40 kph uphill. Pogacar gets a gap. Vingegaard collapses and the gap completely explodes. In fact, Lipovic starts coming back to Vingegaard. He takes 2+ minutes and that's it.
Before we continue, I do want to linger on the stage a little bit because there's a few things I do want to talk about. And Patrick, maybe you can remind me, Wellens was in the breakaway for UAE, but was there any rider for Visma in the breakaway here? No,
yeah,
right?
Benoit.
Okay. So if I see a breakaway formation where Benoit is in the breakaway and Wellens is in the breakaway, Wellens has the upper hand there. Should Visma Leasebike? Because Visma Leasebike going into a stage like this is thinking, okay, we need to try and get a satellite rider up the road to get over Soulor, that if we can do something on Soulor, we have a rider over the top there that might not make it over the top otherwise, that they're there for the final climb. Some idea like that. Should they also think about how can we prevent UAE from having Wellens in the breakaway as well? As a second aspect there. So they're also partially controlling break formation while trying to get in the breakaway themselves.
I think that's kind of impossible, to be honest.
It's complicated.
Like trying to get in a break and then select who will not be in the break with you is very, very difficult, especially when that rider's Tim Wellens, who, yeah, to be honest, is like the MVP of UAE this Tour de France as a helper. He's stronger than Benoit. He's stronger than Van Aert. He's stronger than Campenaerts. In all around, maybe not pure climbing, but all around. So to stop him getting in a break, if you're also trying to get in the break yourself, I think you kind of have to pick your poison and accept it. I'm not sure Wellens was necessarily trying to get in the breakaway. I think he was following moves, happened to get in, and then UAE were like, this is fine, this is a good situation. And yeah, he made a difference in that valley because then Narvaez didn't have to pace the valley, and because Sivakov wasn't there, Soler wasn't there, and Pollitt wasn't there, and Almeida wasn't there. So actually they needed Wellens in front.
To me, this was the first potential tactical mistake of his Malisa bike, though. As in not the breakaway formation stuff, but if we get to the Col de Soulor, the on-the-road decision for me, where we see Jorgensen dropping in the GC group, and we see then Kuss slowing down, that is, I think, the nail in the coffin, especially in hindsight, towards the final climb, where Narvaez surviving plus Wellens being up the road is what leads to such an explosive start to Hautacam in the first place. And I wonder if Jorgensen is dropped, and then Kuss keeps pacing and Simon Yates does not wait for Jorgensen in this hypothetical scenario. Do we see Narvaez getting dropped on Soulor and potentially not coming back before Hautacam? Because if that situation happens, Pogacar does not have that explosive lead out, maybe just Wellens then, which is a better situation in my opinion than the one that was created on the road. And then the question is, did Visma Leasebike try to protect co-leadership of Jorgensen too long past its potential deadline? Because I saw maybe Mont d'Or as the last potential opportunity, or stage 11, to use Jorgensen as co-leader. Because at the end of the day, inherent climbing ability, I didn't see it before running into the Tour de France for it to still be useful past stage 12 or past stage 11.
Yeah, I agree. This stage, probably the next two climbs was where it would have been useful pre-Hautacam. I think the problem was, Benji, rather than protecting co-leadership, it was also that Yates was off the back. So is
Did he
Koos going to
wait
do...
or?
Yeah, he did wait a little bit, but he was also not so good. So are you going to do all of top Sulor, descent Sulor, the next climb, the valley with Koos? That was more the problem.
Yeah.
Is Koos going to be able to keep Narvaez behind? Is he going to... But you're right, Benji. Being isolated, Vingegaard being isolated at the bottom of Hautacam is a preferable outcome. If not optimal, it's preferable if Pogacar also is isolated from a Narvaez and Wellens. That's as long as Pogacar doesn't have those, and because we saw that on Super Bagnier, we saw that on later. Now maybe Pogacar just wasn't as good on those climbs. I don't know, but he was good today. He takes 2 minutes on Vingegaard. He does a very good climbing performance in line with his alarm or Plat d'Ardèche, maybe a bit below, but who cares? He went from like 11 Ks out, and Vingegaard. The thing is, he going to lose second if he's like sick or something. But yeah, Jorgensen has a bad day. He loses a lot of time. The next day, stage 13 was the TT. Pretty different. Pogacar still wins the stage, but the gap is smaller. Vingegaard loses 36 seconds. Roglic third was really good, but Remco gets caught, loses 2 minutes, and that's the beginning of the end of his Tour de France. Stage 14, we begin the very, very weird mountain stages. Hard mountain stage. Arensman wins from the breakaway. Pogacar, the team kind of pace for the stage. They run out of climbing domestiques. Decathlon start pacing. Vingegaard tries with 5Ks to go. Pogacar marks him. Kind of looks disinterested, and then Arensman just wins. Very, very strange stage, I must say.
This felt like the first day where the maybe mindset or riding style of Pogacar switched in this Tour de France. Because after the Peragu time trial is when we noticed him riding more defensively. It's shockingly after doing an interview where he said that he was going to go for stage wins, so that was the ironic, funny part about it. But he started riding more defensively. He started not looking like he was going all out for every stage victory. For example, here with Arensman. I think part of it is also that UAE was struggling a little bit maybe with controlling break formation, or they over-controlled to the point that eventually a large breakaway would go, which Polit then couldn't hold within an achievable gap. I still think Pogacar, peak Pogacar at his best, can still win and ride past that breakaway, past Arensman, etc. by the end of today's stage. Today's stage being stage 14. But that was the first indication there. But did you also feel like this was the start of the mopey Pogacar interviews, as in the slightly more sad-looking Pogacar interviews? Because I feel like there was a switch at this point in the race.
Yeah, maybe he was sick. Maybe he was starting to feel the effects of the crash. Remember, the crash was only 3 days before this in Toulouse. So maybe it was that. Maybe without Almeida, he didn't enjoy being isolated. Maybe it was because Yates wasn't as good as he expected to like control for the stage win. Maybe he was just over it. I don't know. Maybe he got bored of people telling him to like take it easy, or he's just bored. I don't know. He's been in good shape since her feet. Like, it's a long time. It's like 6 months. Being racing and in good shape. So it definitely was a change. Stage 15 was a breakaway. Tim Wellens wins to Carcassonne. Second rest day. Vingegaard on the second rest day says he's still going to go for it. He still thinks he can win the Tour. We have the Mont Ventoux stage, which in my opinion was the best stage of week 3. Because there was a fantastic break battle. Valentin Paris-Pancher works over Ben Healy, wins the sprint, but we see Visma get satellite riders ahead, launch to Chalet Renard. The only grimace Pogacar has in the whole Tour de France maybe was on that first attack from Vingegaard. Tries another time off Campenarts. Pogacar marks him. Pogacar even counters him, but then they get in a deadlock and they don't get to the breakaway. Stage 17 was a sprint won by Milan. He really needed that for the green jersey. Stage 18, the La Loza stage. Vingegaard goes on Madeleine, gets to Jorgensen. Jorgensen does the descent full, and then nothing happens on La Loza. Again, another very strange finish where the break wins O'Connor. Stage 19, even more strange. UAE pace all day on the shortened stage. Shout out to the cows. And it was 92 Ks long. Velens goes crazy. UAE set up a train at the bottom. Velens blows apart Adam Yates and Navai's legs. Nothing happens. Aronsman attacks after the deadlock. And then Vingegaard refuses to relay with Pogačar, and Aronsman wins by 2 seconds. Stage 20 breakaway, Caden Groves just stronger than everybody, as well as smarter. And then stage 21, Champs-Elysees finish. Van Aert in the GC neutralized rain drops Pogačar, who I must admit was still very, very strong and attacked every single Montmartre.
That is correct. Now, you mentioned loads of stages here. I think Montmartre was a fantastic stage to watch, but I actually agree that Mont Ventoux was perhaps one of my favorites. Maybe an odd comparison, but if we take a look at the Madeleine stage, for example, we see Jorgensen being ahead, Vingegaard attacking to Jorgensen. That's a tactical play from Visma UAE in the hopes that Pogačar gets in trouble at some point and then Jorgensen can ride away with Vingegaard. That's the idea behind the plan, but didn't necessarily work out that way because Pogačar, his legs are pretty good. Spoilers. Then on Mont Ventoux, we see a tactical play where we have Benoit and Campenaerts being up the road. You mentioned earlier where they're up the road, etc. Is it a coincidence that the stage on which we see the tactics of Visma UAE, the riders having the legs to pull out the tactics, it being the Evenepoel stage? Because I feel like on the really hard stages, Wout van Aert was not necessarily good enough to be a relevant part of a tactical plan because he couldn't necessarily be in the breakaway on a mountain stage, etc. So it feels like the legs were too limited in the hard mountain stages from some of the domestiques to get into position to try something in the first place sometimes.
Nah, I don't agree because on the Col de la Madeleine stage they did.
But that's just one rider Jordan, which is fine. But in other stages, that didn't.
Campenaerts drops Vauquelin. Simon Yates reduces the group to 10, and then Seb Kuss does a lead out and reduces it to the 2 best riders in the race, and Lipovitz can't get back to him.
Fair. Then if we take a look at obviously stage 19, that's a lost stage. I don't necessarily look at that stage and say, okay. Because if the first climb is present in that race, then you've got a climb on which you can set up satellite riders.
Then you have Col du Pré after some fatigue. Then the break's already formed. There's already been the break formation on the Cézy, and then the Col du Pré is completely different. And then, that stage just turned into a joke, frankly. I think the problem was just more that Vingegaard couldn't drop Pogačar. I think if Vingegaard drops Pogačar on Madeleine, everyone's saying Sepp Kuss,
shocker,
best domestique in the world. He's back. Yeah. What a lead out. He dropped, but he didn't. Vingegaard, and if he gets across to Jorgensen and then Jorgensen pulls the descent and Valley full and takes more time out of Pogačar, everyone's saying best all-round climbing domestique like work. They forget about the sickness. The reality is it just was Vingegaard couldn't drop him on Madeleine and that was it.
Because hypothetically, let's say we get over Madeleine, etc., and Jorgensen does have the legs to try something at Col de la Loze, it does not make Col de la Loze a better climb to attack on either, but at least Jorgensen might have had the legs to be ahead, stuff like that, but then the sickness is what caused him to have shit legs in the week 2 in the first place. So that's a good reason for that. But then if we look at Sepp Kuss, I gotta say I actually saw a pretty good Sepp Kuss in this race. I was actually happily surprised when week 2 started. In week 1, I'm sorry, but I don't expect Sepp to be good in week 1.
But isn't that the problem?
I don't see that as a problem. I'm sorry, but 5 years ago, Wout Poels was shit in the first week of a Grand Tour as well.
And Adam Yates the same.
There's riders that are more specialist than they are versatile, and that's fine. You've got specialist domestiques for the high mountains. You've got versatile domestiques for the medium mountains. That's where, on paper, I've said it already. We mentioned Montmartre. Wout van Aert, fantastic stager. Super strong in that stage. But in my personal opinion, in the 20 days that became before, his best stages were the stages that he rode for himself and the stage in which he rode for Jonas Vingegaard. He was not part of the top X amount of climbers in the peloton and therefore didn't have the same ability of potentially getting into that breakaway in the way Kampenaerts did, stuff like that. Because Kampenaerts was a better domestique in this race than Wout did, and it wasn't close.
So yeah, and same with Wellens. Like Tim Wellens had the domestique level Tour de France that everyone said Van Aert had in 2022. But Wellens maybe added even more value because, you forget all these random moments where shit can go wrong, where it doesn't go wrong. But the right-hand corner, the pivotal right-hand corner on stage, the one where Van der Poel was in the break with Ricard, right-hand corner, everybody knows the wind direction is going to be cross-tail out of this corner. Everyone's fresh. It's the first time they hit the cross-tail. Who's first through that corner with Pog on his wheel? Tim Wellens. It's not Nils Pollitt. It's not Narvaez. It's not Soler. It's Tim Wellens. Who's doing the Mur de Bretagne lead out because Narvaez was out of position and Almeida crashed? It's Tim Wellens.
Tim Wellens. Who's in the breakaway on Otakam, being there for the final climb. Tim Wellens.
And he wins a fucking stage too. So like Tim Wellens was the best domestique in this Tour de France on any team. Yep. Like the most valuable because he did it on all terrain. He even, talk about La Plan stage. Tim Wellens must have been like, are you serious? I just pulled the 70 Ks full. I controlled Roglic. And then you guys just need to make Arensman not win and pace for Pog. So, yeah, Tim Wellens was unbelievably good. And that's the thing, Benji. I think this tour shows, and, your point about Sepp Kuss, if it has a start like this, the all-rounders, like Jorgensen got sick in this tour, but still, Jorgensen provides a lot more value because he can attack in the hill classic stages. He can ride on the crosswinds. He can get in the break on Madeleine and then pace enough to keep Libovitz behind. And the all-round riders, they count for almost 2.
But in the fast and days of the Tour de France, Jorgensen did play a card of a co-leadership. I may not have believed in it for the mountain stages, but Pogacar was responding.
It worked when Jorgensen attacked. Pogacar chased him even when he was out of GC.
Exactly. So that was still a relevant card to play on Mont d'Or, for example, where multiple times Jorgensen attacks, in so doing, forcing Pogacar to respond to that. In so doing, Vingegaard's in the wheel of Pogacar, while technically Pogacar has to close more in the wind than Vingegaard does. That's the idea behind it, then, I assume. Now, that's fair, but does the second week and the third week of the Tour de France, do you think, impact the way Jorgensen will be seen next year by UAE as a potential threat?
No.
Okay.
Because I just think Pogacar does not want a Visma rider attacking going ahead. And it's not I agree. It's not like it's not like a blacklist thing either. He just doesn't want a more complicated scenario happening that can create a longer period of controlling or pain. If he can just snap onto the wheel, the climb ends, and then it's over, and he can solve it in 10 seconds.
I half agree, but I still think there was more focus on Jorgensen than on a ton of other riders, where if Wout van Aert was attacking or a Kampenaerts was attacking, they got more free reign than a Jorgensen did, which also is because Jorgensen on paper is more helpful in a breakaway situation over a mountain, etc., than a Kampenaerts or a Wout van Aert on paper would be. Kampenaerts, of course, full credits as well. Wellens might have been the MVP of UAE, that's for sure, but Kampenaerts was for me the MVP of Visma Leasebike in this race because he was pretty strong. And again, I'll say it again, Sepp Kuss looked actually quite solid to me in this race. But
yes.
Would you say, how do we feel like the Giro participation impacted Wout van Aert and Simon Yates? Because obviously it's hard to judge, but it does feel like Simon Yates was not at his best level ever in this Tour de France, and Wout van Aert definitely was not at his best level ever.
And there's a Affini coming out of the Giro too, so that's 3 riders coming out of the Giro. Adam Yates coming out of the Giro, not at his best ever level either. And I think that's Pogacar came out of the Giro last year at his best ever level. I still think doing the Giro before, it's not the optimal prep.
Yeah,
that was the case for 2 decades before Pog. Pog doesn't change that. It's still true for most of the other riders.
Because he's the exception. Now, about UAE for a second, you mentioned Wellens. We also got to mention that Vaz was super strong on Otakam, etc. But outside of that, he also had great, strong climbing performances. His best level as climbing ever. When it comes to Nils Pollitt, yes, we might have found this bullying strategy and break formation not fun and annoying to watch. But at the end of the day, he was pretty strong when it comes to break control, even though when the large breakaways happened, he was losing control of them. But to me, that also feels like the same feedback we gave after Milano Sanremo, Patrick, where in Milano Sanremo, he was put in a position to try and position UAE before the Cipressa started, a job that Nils Pollitt would never have been able to do based on what we've seen from Nils Pollitt before that. And now when it comes to the Tour de France, we see Nils Pollitt being put in a position where the rest of the team, Wellens, Soler, etc., somewhat over-control break formation. In doing so, suddenly creating a 38-man group, a 30-man group. It's kind of low-key impossible for Nils Pollitt to control that as well, you know? So, for example, the stage on... I don't remember which stage it was, but it was a stage... It was the bullying Pollitt stage where eventually the breakaway ended up winning the stage. Might have been Van too. And then I'm thinking, okay, if UAE chose to put another rider with Pollitt, that would have had the break being able to be controlled, and Pogacar could have won the stage quite easily then. But everything was on the shoulder when that was an impossible task. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that was the weird... I think they had Sivakov in the break, but it was a paper tiger, and it would have been more useful just to drop Sivakov out of the break and just pull with Pollitt if you want to stage.
He had a shit tour, in my opinion.
I think he was sick. Before the tour came in, and Sivakov, they made race through sickness a lot in spring as well, from memory. He got sick after he won Andalusia, and then he had to race maybe Paris-Nice or something. Yeah. And same with Wellens in the classics, but Wellens came good out of it. But yeah, I think both teams had some overperformers, like Wellens, Narvaez, like Campenaerts, and then both had riders that you kind of didn't see very much, or didn't just affect the racing in any tangible way. Like, I think of it in terms of how does this domestique affect win probability of GC, not stage, stage 2, but win probability each day and each action they take. And so when Tim Wellens makes sure Pogacar's in the right position for a specific corner, that increases Pogacar's win probability by 0.05%.
Yeah.
And he does that hundreds of times throughout the race, increasing his win probability. And then some riders, and then other domestiques just don't change it at all.
Yeah.
And so
I think that's a fair way to look at it.
Yeah.
But I do have this overwhelming feeling when it comes to this Grand Tour that I would like to see some changes in the roster of both UAE and Visma Lease Bike.
Need a refresh.
Towards next year. A refresh, like you mentioned it. Because Wout van Aert needs to be at his best level to be valuable for Jonas Vingegaard, and he can be at his best level to be supportive of Jonas Vingegaard. But I didn't see that in this Tour de France. So his stage win might have been fun, but domestique-wise, he wasn't the most valuable. And when you're pointing fingers, you're putting fingers in the air. Why are you putting fingers in the air? You're starting to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What are we counting, Patrick?
That's what UAE did. When UAE lost in 2022 and 2023, you know what they did in 2024, Benji? They changed five of the 8 Tour de France riders for their 2024 team. They changed, so they had in 2023 they had Bjerg, Grosschartner, Langen, Micah, Trentin. Now one left, Trentin, and I would have probably kept him in, frankly, but regardless, they changed 5 of the 8. And then they brought in Almeida, Ayuso, Pollitt, Sivakov, Wellens. And then this year they brought in Narvaez, but otherwise kept it the same. And I think you just got to... It's not like Sky where you just roll out the same team 6 years in a row. So I think, I
agree, but who do you then see that becoming? Because right now I obviously have to work off... But I mean about Visma Lisa back then, because
Oh, yeah.
sure, UAE, I look at UAE and I'm saying, okay, they've won the Tour de France. They might want to refresh a certain aspect of their riders, and Del Toro coming in as an example, or a
But
revitalized
point,
Ayuso in a few years.
they won in dominant fashion last year, so they didn't refresh this year. It was just Narvaez in for whoever, Micah maybe.
I don't remember, actually.
I don't remember. But the point is, yeah, they didn't do a refresh and now they win again. So is the motivation, are they going to do the refresh next year despite winning again?
I don't expect a full refresh, but I do expect a slight change, because they're potential co-leaders within the team, which won't be a co-leader at the Tour de France, but a guy like Del Toro, he might want to step into a Tour de France role, or maybe he thinks, okay, I still want to do the other Grand Tours, etc. It's also what the preference of those riders when it comes to people management will be within the team, because it's not an easy situation that they're in right now. Even when we look at the Vuelta, we haven't spoken about it yet, but Pogacar is set to be skipping the Vuelta. Official communication came a few days ago, and instead we see Almeida and Ayuso going. Off-topic question. Do you think Ayuso leaving and the agent situation where he took up an agent, I think it was Lombardi, to potentially look into the release clause, which I don't believe that release clause is very valid, but regardless, do you think that's actually a ploy to get out of the team, or do you think that was perhaps a method to put pressure on the team to put him in La Vuelta?
Yeah, I think so. Like, they can't send him to these classic Torres del Ebre 1.1s, because if you don't send him to the Vuelta after having to abandon the Giro, what else is there for him to do? The Canadian classics and China, but I'm sorry, he'll just hold out. So I think that was part of it, putting and also, like, there is an Ayuso faction in UAE, so there's the Machin camp, which, like, Machin would rather Ayuso podium the Tour than Pogacar win the Tour, is how I interpret it. Like,
okay,
almost. So, like, he definitely would rather Ayuso won the Tour than Pogacar.
Yeah,
that's for sure. So, anyway, back to, but yeah, who would you rather want to see? I cut you off, Benji. Who would you want to see then in the Visma team?
First of all, I'd like to see Brennan at the Vuelta this year. That's just something I'm putting out there. Now I do have to refresh myself with the Vuelta parcours. What? Sorry?
There's a lot of sprints.
Ooh, then I do want to see Brennan at La Vuelta, my friend. But for next year, I'm looking through the list of riders that Visma currently has, and I'm thinking through, okay, there's been rumored signings of Armirai, of Fiorelli, of certain riders towards the team. I don't see massive names popping up in those rumors that I'm like, okay, these riders will be 100% in the Tour de France team.
Like Simon Philip, yeah.
I see possibilities of, if an Armirai steps up, etc., then maybe he can be a role somewhere in like maybe a Van Barle style role where he was 2-3 years ago in the early climbs in the Tour de France. Just vaguely thinking about a potential war for a rider like that. But hypothetically, you'd say that Affini does not make the Tour de France team if every single rider at Visma Lease Bike is at their prime level. That's an example. And Affini was good at the Giro, and in moments in this Tour de France, he was valuable for the team where he can be valuable, but he's also not valuable enough to the point that I see him as like an essential roster spot for the Tour de France for this team. And I'm pretty sure he was also a late addition to the team. So
yeah, he was
that's
a
an
reserve.
argument. Like, on paper, a peak Christophe Laporte is a much better option there because he's slightly more versatile as well.
Yeah, like Clapp would have been mutant in week one on those hill stages positioning.
Yeah.
But he's been sick. Clapp.
Did you just call him Clapp?
Yeah, see
The
that.
Door is such a much better nickname, bro.
Door.
Clapp.
I think there's just something about how onerous the preparation is for the Tour de France now, in that it begins in February and most normal humans need variety, need a different stimuli. And I think when you bring in a new rider into that, Narvaez, Campenaerts, for the first year,
Brennan.
Matthew Brennan. I mean, imagine Brennan after altitude. It's just it would just be unfair.
He'd win the Tour.
Why not? I mean, he's small. So
small,
not
man,
that explosive,
go.
is he? The
uphill fast.
He would have walked Green. He would have walked it. He would have taken yellow stage 1 too. No way Philipson beats him in that sprint. I just think you need new variety, and so yeah, like Per Strandhagen as Benji, can he do the Christophe Laporte role? I think yes. In the Dauphiné and Paris-Nice, he was excellent in that all-round rouleur role. Is it going to be as good as Christophe Laporte? I don't know. But Ben Tullett, could he take into the like Mountain Domestique role? Because he's going to be motivated for it because they want to make this their first Tour de France. They're going to be like Campenaerts mental mode, you know? And I'm not saying that other riders weren't. I'm just saying that, yeah, like I think you almost, when you're not the favorite, like Visma won't be the favorite again next year, most likely, if Poggy starts. Yeah. So then you got to take more of a risk, maybe on the younger guys, so that they then, when you maybe are the favorite again, have 2 Tours de France under their belt.
I agree on that sense, but I also see it as in, if I currently look at the roster of Visma Leasebike, and I think about UAE in the Tour de France, for example, we did not see the best possible UAE in the Tour de France either. We mentioned it already with numerous riders, but Adam Yates was not at his best in this Tour de France. Imagine Del Toro being added to his list. Imagine Almeida not crashing out in the first 10 days. You got to try and prep yourself, if you're Visma Leasebike, to try and fight the best possible UAE. And then ideally, they're not at their best possible UAE once you get to the Tour de France. And then on Visma Leasebike's side, I'm looking at the team and I think, okay, Simon Yates wasn't at his best. Imagining him at his best possible level at the Tour de France? Sure. Imagining Sepp Kuss at his Vuelta level, I don't imagine him being at the Tour de France at any point. I hope for Kuss that we see that again, but I haven't seen the possibility of that yet. So I expect him to be at this level then for next year's Tour de France, hypothetically. If I look through the rest of the list here, then I just see in their current roster, at the end of the day, UAE has a higher budget, and that does show, that is portrayed in the amount of GC, Grand Tour, GC level riders that they have in their team that could potentially be at a Grand Tour like the Tour de France as helpers for Pogacar.
And they can all
Visma
climb.
is not that luxurious.
And they can all climb. Like, you look through UAE's roster, everyone can climb pretty much.
Yeah.
So...
Except Milano.
Except a couple of guys, like even Ivo Oliveira can climb.
Yep.
He can actually climb. So I agree, Benji. Although I actually don't think I don't think Almeida would have changed Pogacar's win probability at all. I think on Halterkamp, he's already not there for the lead out. I think the TT would have been good, and I think on the Madeleine,
crashed out before Otagame, Almeida.
He did. But I'm saying on like Madeleine,
yeah.
If he'd been there, he's not following the Kuss lead out. He's sitting on the wheel of Lipovitz or with Onley, protecting third.
Maybe, but I do see a possibility that if hypothetically he does ride for Pogacar in situations, that Pogacar gets out of the Tour de France with 6-stage victories instead of 4.
Yeah, so on Super Bagnières and on La Plane, if Almeida's there, Pog wins the stage. There's 2 stages.
Or Ventoux,
100%.
perhaps?
Nah. When Kuss does a lead out and then Vingegaard attacks, he just goes onto Lipovitz's wheel and then rides for his third. But on Super Bagnières and La Plane, I think he starts to ride tempo and then Pog can just win.
Patrick?
Maybe.
Rainy cobbles, Joao Almeida at its peak.
Maybe. Let's talk about Red Bull Bora, hansgrohe and Lipovitz, one of the breakout riders. I mean, this would have been a big story. It's a big story in Germany. He comes into the Tour de France after a good Dauphiné, although he wasn't good on the final mountain stage. He takes the white jersey third. If you look at this Tour de France from Red Bull Bora, hansgrohe, Benji, it nearly would have been definite success. If Mayos jumps early, they win a stage in third. That is a successful Tour de France. The expectations coming in was third was the highest possible. They achieved the highest possible. They achieve it also probably with the rider if they had to choose. I think they actually would rather it was Lipovic than Man of the Future, and also German market, money, money, money. So, but it just feels weird because in week one they were in like crisis mode. Like stage one, it was like crisis mode.
It's not just stage one, but I've got this overwhelming feeling in week one that I feel like we saw on the stage where Kampenaerts nailed that descent behind the motorbike where the group ended up splitting. I feel like it was Lipovic spacing the chasing group with Rogla in his wheel. So in week one, they might have already been looking at themselves, but it was certainly Lipovic doing more of the work to try and come back in those stages than Roglic was. But
if I was, and listen, did the Red Bull team as a whole perform that well? No. But like they brought a sprinter with Van Poppel. Van Poppel then left before stage 17 for the birth of his child, which was unfortunate timing, but fair enough.
Time it better, bro.
Just after the last sprint stage, yeah. They brought the Van Dijk, Pithy to help the GC guys, but you're trying to babysit two GC guys who aren't that good in positioning. One's horrendous in positioning. If I was Pithy, Benji, and I just tried to babysit Roglic for the whole of the first 10 days with mixed success, and then he throws away 3 GC positions on La Plan stage, I would be super pissed. Yeah. It's like, probably you're getting chewed out after stage 1 for losing 30 seconds. Like, it would have been on the bus after stage 1 after they lost 30 seconds in the crosswinds. I'm sure the rouleurs, it wasn't a happy time. And I'm sure Roglic probably wasn't happy either. And then on stage 19, he's like, fuck it, I'll just lose 12 minutes.
I fully agree with you, but I will confess I was slightly zoned out because I was looking at a website where I could subtract 9 months of July 20th to figure out when the conception of Danny van Poppel's baby was, and it was mid-October. So that makes sense just after the end of last season.
It's always off-season because their bodies recover and they're not like so physically stressed. I'm
doing the more important work here, Patrick. Come on.
But, it's actually true, though. It's actually true.
When it comes to Roglic, fully agree that him throwing away a GC for him it doesn't matter, perhaps.
Yeah, but it's disrespectful. I think
not just to your teammates, but also what do you think your sponsor thinks? Like, yes, his aura attacking that day was great, but definitely wasn't a great look for the sponsor throwing away a top 5 position in the Grand Tour at the Tour de France as well. But
and not helping Lippo.
That's in addition to it. Like, I saw some people say, but Benji, they were trying to put pressure on Oscar Only by attacking with Roglic. No, that's never going to happen. That's the most naive tactic. That is correct, but the team of Picnic will never start pacing on a stage like stage 19, nor will Only, because UAE will control the peloton.
Wellens is riding 450 watts, dude.
So yeah, but also, there were some moments, I think you pointed it out a few times as well, maybe on the Mont d'Or stage, also on stage 18, where Roglic attacks, and then Lipovic closes to the wheel. When Roglic is off with 2 riders, the gap is minimal, but Lipovic should not be closing in those moments. And I don't actually think it's from a selfish, I need to make sure Roglic doesn't get away standpoint. I think it's from the same standpoint that we've pointed with Lipovic before, that, no offense, but his in-race decision-making is not the best.
No. And like, on Saxon-Nex in Dauphiné, he did it like when he rode in front of Wellens for 10 seconds, and they repeat the same mistake on the La Loze stage. And at the time in the Valley, everyone's like, oh, what, Visma, they're just letting Lipovic ride away.
Yeah, but
I was like, you have to look at the profile. He rode the whole half Madeleine himself, chasing the two in front. He rode the whole descent on the hoods himself while Jorgensen was pushing. He ran attacks in the valley as soon as he gets back, rides the whole valley himself, and he's going to do a 26k climb on 5% himself. Like, no. It should have been either Roglic pacing in the valley or Roglic attacking. It's okay to attack with the worst place GC contender.
Yeah.
But anyway, I actually think Red Bull Bora, they got no credit for it. It wasn't on TV. They did almost identical tactics to Visma on Ventoux with the satellite rider. In fact, slightly different. They had Van Dijk there for the 6% section headwind.
Which
and
stage?
Then
Ventoux.
Van Dijk was pulling as a satellite rider. He climbed really well. You never saw it. And it was Lippo, Only, Roglic, and then they started rolling Only again. And they rolled him on Super Bagnaia. They rolled him, and that's how Lippo gets his third place.
Yeah, but that's like the rolling attacks on Only, which is fair. That's good. But you pointed at Lipovic attacking in stage 18, for example, in the valley, riding ahead for a while, stuff like that. That should also come from the team car. Like, at the end of the day, a team car should be in control of their riders. And if they see that they're riding into a hopeless, let's be honest, pretty much suicide mission in the attack there, then at the end of the day, is a team car that should also be aware of the ongoing situation, be able to predict that he's going to blow up if he stays in the situation, and even further, have the ability to call them back and the rider to listen, which I'd like to believe that Lipovic would listen if the team car in that situation says, you're riding to your doom, wait on the group behind you, this is useless, you're going to explode on the last climb if you do this. But it looks like, from what I could perceive, that decision never came from the team car. So that was a team car mistake, in my opinion, mostly.
Yeah,
what
possibly.
do you think, Patrick?
Possibly, but still, yeah, Lipovic does need to be reined in. Very aggressive rider, like he would attack a lot in break formation too, which is cool to see.
But where's his ceiling? Because we look at Lipovic now podium in the Tour de France, but if he goes to the Giro next year, is he a contender for the victory? It depends on the competition, but...
Depends, yeah.
If Vingegaard and Pogacar aren't there, yes.
I think you have to say, yeah.
Weird,
he has a good TT. His punch is like okay. His climbing's really good. He's like pretty robust looking. He's not a scrawny like weakling. Like he looks pretty robust. I think he's obviously pushing a shitload of watts because he isn't 58 kilos and he's climbing this well. I think if he was in a jersey, he's pretty exploitable tactically. Because he might make the wrong decision, but that's a better place to be in. At least you're leading a race.
When I look at the top 10 of this Tour de France, Patrick, I see Lipovic in 3rd place. I see Only in 4th place. Felix Gall in 5th place. Tobias Johannesson in 6th place. Vogla in 7th place. I see Roglic in 8th, who threw away the top 5 in the last few days. Then in 9th place, I think it was Healy. And in 10th place, we've got Jordan Giga. When you look at that top 10, Patrick, then my initial reaction is, that's a pretty light top 10. Which is that an actuality, a fact that it's a pretty light top 10? Or if we compare it to other years, were the what's necessary to be on the top 10 lower or higher? Because if I look at last year, for example, Remco Evenepoel gets a podium, etc. Is Remco Evenepoel's podium in 2024 more valuable than Lipovic's podium in 2025 in terms of future proofness of those performances, even though Remco fell through this year? Like, how do we compare one year's top 10, top 3, top 5 to another year's top 10, top 3, top 5?
I mean, the time gaps are the same as last year. So, like, Almeida was 4th last year on 7 minutes further from Pog than Only was. Now, admittedly, Pog rode had better climbing performances across more stages last year, but still, like, they raced full gas every day this Tour de France as well. So, who's to say that it's just the names are changing and these are the new names? Oscar Only, Florian Lipovic, maybe Felix Gall's. Like, Gall's descending has improved. Yeah. It has improved. It is still not great, but it is not absolute dog shit. Like when Jorgensen was pushing on Madeleine descent, he was never really on a gap. And a year and a half ago, I'm telling you, it would have been night. Like he would have been shot through the ice. So I just think the names are changing, Benji. And of course, yeah, Almeida, Evenepoel, Carapaz, Simon Yates in good shape, and Adam Yates in good shape, Landa. These sort of guys you maybe expect to be in the top 10, but are they really better than Only? I don't think so. I don't think they are. I think Only's Watts are good.
They're better than a Jordan Giga. I don't want to take away from Giga's amazing stage 20 breakaway raid. Love that shit.
These guys are getting dropped on the first of 3 climbs of the day.
So you'd expect the Giga to land in a top 15 Guillaume Martin position of the past. That's what you'd expect to happen, like a Steph Cross situation, stuff like that. And that's why I feel like a 10th place this year is less than what I perceive in other years sometimes. And I think that's part of the fact that we saw Almeida crash out, we saw Remco implode and not have his abilities of climbing of last year. We saw Landa not showing up at the Tour de France because of injury. We saw the Yateses of the world not being at the level they were in the past, or not necessarily at their best possible level in this race, and also having the ability to go for their GC individually. We don't necessarily have a Peak Sepkus that also, next to being a domestique, also tries to stay in the top 10 like he might have done in the last couple of years a few times. The combination of those factors, I think, also leads to it being perceived like a lighter top 10, P7 to P10 then.
I just think these guys are improving, and you can't say, okay, Jordan Giga, he's never top 10 a World Tour stage race before this Tour de France, and he's scraping, a 10th at a Lula Tour or something, and now he's top 10 at the Tour, but this guy wasn't professional 18 months ago.
3 years ago.
18 months ago. He wasn't professional. Right? He was at Nantes. Okay, it is actually like really a professional team. There's Conti teams and there's Conti teams, but he's
don't want to be that guy, Patrick. Told Lotto to sign him in 2023.
Yeah, but like, look at it, and that's what. And then his progression. Okay, he's 26, but in Neo Pro last year, already pretty good results. Second year professional, he's still improving, and that's yeah. So maybe he's just a better rider than what he's shown yet, and he's still improving. I don't know.
I think that there's definitely a truth to that.
Yeah, he's just not. It's like if Enric had come 9th, you're like, oh, that's like a Vuelta podium guy. If Carapaz is in 8th. I think there's also the reality that these big guys, Benji, don't give a shit. Like, look at Roglic. So, like, Enric Mas, Carapaz, Roglic, they don't care. They do not care about defending 7th or defending 8th. And really, why would they? They don't get a bonus for it. They've podium Grand Tours. They've won Grand Tours with Carapaz and Roglic. They've won Grand Tour stages. And so they're like, I want to go win a stage then. I don't care about if I drop to 8th. Whereas for Jordan Giga, for Johannesson, for Healy, for Vauquelin, all these guys in the top 10, they were defending their top 10 position with their life. When Vauquelin was dropped on the descent off Col du Pré, X pulled with their whole team when he was on a 5-second gap to try and flick him. And it succeeded. And we didn't speak about X and Johannesson, but they got to be happy with his position on GC. He backs up from the Dauphiné with a great, 6th?
A pro team with a 6th position in GC for Tobias Holland Johannesson and a stage victory of Abrahamsen. Probably one of the most overperforming teams in this Tour de France, in my opinion. And there's a lot of winners and potential losers as well in this Tour de France. Because when I look at Alpes in the Koning, yes, Jasper Philipsen crashes out. But then I look at the team and they still score 3 stage victories. Van der Poel, Philipsen both having yellow jersey for a few days. Then Groves taking it on stage 20. We call it a carousel op de taart. What do you call that? Something on the I don't fucking
cherry.
know. Carousel op de taart. A cherry on top. That's the vibe that I was going with. But Soudal Quickstep, yes, their podium is a failure. Let's be honest about that. But they end up with 4 stage victories.
With 3 different riders.
2 of which are Merlier, Parepantre, and
Remco TT.
Of course, yeah. The most obvious one. But are there other teams that are like winners in this race that we might not have mentioned, you think?
You say EF?
I did not. Go ahead.
Yeah, EF Education Easy Post. I mean, this is a magic tour for them, winning a stage, taking the yellow jersey, being close on other stages. They were the best team getting in they were in every breakaway stage represented. Sweeney had a go. You know, he was very, very good. So even though, yes, Vandenberg had to DNS, Asgren, and I mean, even Albanese, Benji, even he
was okay.
Was in a break. Like, I think they probably, yeah.
I think it's a combination.
They were just excellent.
The combination of a stage win plus a top 10 in GC plus super competitivity plus yellow jersey for a few days is that combination of it all. If it was just a stage win, then you'd say, okay, that's the expectation for you, because I do expect Healy to potentially take stage in this. To then also take the yellow jersey. Top 10 in GC, I've already said my thing. I still think his climbing was at a higher level than I expected in this Tour de France. So that is something we do have to point out. The hill track for me is a difficult one.
But
because we haven't spoken. Go ahead.
Bear in mind, they also were supposed to come here with Carapaz, and he couldn't come because he had a dodgy bit of food 3 weeks before the race. Maybe extended his contract. He had gastro, and I swear to God, he's like, I'm not doing the tour. And the announcement came like 2 weeks before the tour. And when you watch Race TV, the first episode, they're kind of in. Wegelius is trying to be like, they've had to rip up their whole plans for the tour, and they're like, we got to try to make the best of it. Was their vibe, and then to come away with this results is for them will be unbelievable. So sorry, Trek Benji.
Because he was rumored to have signed an extension before the tour, right? Or was it confirmed already?
Nah, I just made it up.
I'm pretty sure it's true, though.
I mean, you would think Carapaz by now has signed an extension after that Giro, with...
Anyway, that to the side, I was trying to dive into the points classification for a bit, and talking about Little Trek, bit of a difficult team to judge, because yes, Simmons was strong in breakaway formation. No, Simmons was strong in breakaways. Then we saw Jonathan Milan winning 2 sprint stages, taking the green jersey. But also, nobody else really tried for the green jersey.
So Milan wins 372 points ahead of a Tadej Pogačar, who refused to win it, 294 points. Biniam, 232. Vingegaard, 182. Anthony Turgis, who I didn't see outside of the intermediates, takes 182. I don't know.
It's not the most prestigious green jersey.
This was the worst green jersey competition that we ever covered.
Yeah.
I think
that's true. I don't remember the 2020-ish ones, though, but I assume they were better.
Yeah. It just felt weird. I think Trek's team construction, like they thought Thibaut Naes would be competitive for the week 1 stages. He wasn't. I think he crashed in training before the race. Julien Bernard would have been a better addition to the team all around.
Yeah.
Don't know if he's doing the Welter. I think the lead-outs were pretty good. They were pretty good.
Yeah.
I think they got unlucky on stage 1. They were mostly in good position, but I mean, their goal would have been green jersey in a couple of stages. They win green jersey in a couple of stages. Schkelmoser crashed himself again. What are you going to do?
So I think they should probably be happy after this, and obviously Milan should be happy that they won the green jersey. I just view it as one of the least prestigious ones I've seen in a while, because nobody else really hardcore.
Why didn't Pog go for it?
Because Pog is trying to win the Tour de France, and I don't think
Yeah, but there was he just needed to roll through some intermediates.
I just don't think he gives a fuck.
Yeah, but it's you only have to do it once. You only have to win it once, and this is probably the only year he can win it.
Like, if Pogačar, Machin said, I think in an interview maybe yesterday or the day before that, Pogačar's tiredness led to him riding more defensively, led to him being reduced in motivation. What can inspire motivation? A different competition where you're losing, like the green jersey.
Exactly.
And it's not like this opportunity will come along every year for Pogačar to take green, because in this tour, 50 points on a hill stage doesn't happen every year. I haven't seen that maybe ever at a Tour de France. So it was a Tour de France where it's weird, because on one end, yes, 50 points on hill stage is very good for the Van der Poels and Pogačar in the world. Then again, they both don't do bench sprints. But on the other hand, the intermediate sprints were then placed in the first 25 kilometers of mountain stage on the flat. So then it highly inspired sprinters to be the advantageous group of people going for green. So the idea of green kind of countered each other, which I'm not sure if that correctly balances it out. I don't know. It felt like an odd point system this year.
KOM jerseys won by Pogacar. I think this was even less of a competition. He wins with 119 points ahead of Vingegaard in 104 points. Lenny Martinez on 97 points went for it.
It could have been a KOM breakaway rider if someone 100% went for it and had the durability to get over one climb in a multi-mountain stage with Lenny Martinez, which Lenny Martinez didn't have.
I think Aronson
it could have not been Poggi.
They got to take away the double points. I think Aronson could have won it. He's that sort of climber you're talking about, but he went for stages. He wins 2 stages. So, but yeah, the KOM and the KOM jersey competition, they got that. We say this, I almost feel like every year needs a bit of a revamp. Lipovic wins white jersey ahead of Onley by 1 minute 12. Visma win teams ahead of UAE. The very poor housekeeping, Benji. We didn't even run through the GC top 10. But
I did. Don't worry.
Oh, you did?
Don't worry.
So who are the breakout riders then? I would say Onley, Lipovic kind of already had. Yeah, Vauquelin. Who's out of Healy? I think we're just waiting to see confirmation then. Only I don't need to see confirmation. Lipovic, there's no confirmation. Whereas I feel like with Healy, Johannesson, and Vauquelin, I kind of need to see it again.
For me, for Only and etc., for me, this was kind of the confirmation. Only and Lipovic.
Yeah.
Because with Lipovic, we had a Velda last year that already showed that he could ride for GC over 3 weeks.
And Romani would have won.
Yeah, and Only here, going into this race, I was like, okay, he's done it in 1 week now at Tour de Suisse, etc. Can he do it in a 3-week race? This was the confirmation for that possibility, in my opinion. Vauquelin, I somewhat agree with you that I said it before, P7 to P10 in this Grand Tour ranking, outside of Roglic then, because Roglic could have top 5 this Tour de France, I think, if he rode the race differently. Then P7 to P10, so Vauquelin, Healy, and Giga. Them being in that position doesn't mean they're going to be able to do that again next year directly. Vauquelin did ride better in the mountains than I expected.
Yeah, I agree.
But I need a little bit of confirmation, like you said. And it's also because I feel like usually P10 and until P15 in the last few mountain stages are closer to P10, allowing for potential top 10 backdoors. And now there were massive gaps outside of Joga and Ben O'Connor being P10 and 11 on stage 20. So that also feels like an indication that, like Simon Yates, you can't tell me that 15th place Simon Yates really tried for GC.
No.
So it's not like there were more than 12 people, maybe 11 people actually trying for GC here.
Yates was literally chilling in week 1. Like, not really trying to make splits. Same with both the Yates brothers. They were like just chilling, waiting for the mountain stages. So Oscar Only, the perverse thing, Benji, is he's performed so well here, taken so many UCI points across the season. He has locked himself into his contract with Picnic Posternel, who won't get relegated. He's contracted through end of 2027. He signed that extension quite a while ago, so he'll be like, yeah, they'll have to break it open, or he's way underpaid.
Yeah. Explain to the people that are maybe new to the Tour de France and new to the point system, why does this Tour de France lock Oscar Only into his contract with the team?
So Picnic Posternel were in danger of relegation from the World Tour at the end of this year, but they had a plan, and the plan was to like perform with their best riders in the biggest races, which also offer the most points. Astana have the opposite plan, where Astana were going to farm in the minor calendar, and then Astana were actually terrible this Tour de France. Then in this Tour de France, Bittner and Lund Andresen sprinted for like quite a few points, and then Only this year has taken 2,700 points more or less. He's a top 5 rider ranked on PCS in 25. He has a long-term contract, which, as I understand, he signed like himself without an agent, which dangerous. Riders listening, the agents who now I have to sit on the other side of, the agents generally speaking, they earn their money. From whereas the riders that negotiate it themselves sometimes lock themselves like, oh, look, are you, or if your dad's doing it with Ayuso and Remco. So just, probably don't do it yourself. Don't have a family member do it. Anyway, Only is signed through end of 2027. If they'd been relegated, they wouldn't have a World Tour license. That contract could then be terminated without a buyout by Only, in theory, if he wanted to leave. That's also, there's no guarantee he would have wanted. Maybe he would have, if they had invites, would have stayed there. Who knows? But in theory, if they'd been relegated, he could have left his contract without paying any termination clause. But that won't happen now because they're not being relegated, because Picnic not a risk. I think they've leaped. They're back over on top of Astana, and it's actually Wanty below them. So, and then there's the merger of Lotto and whatever. That's more weekly show stuff. But yeah, Only is not on the market for 2026.
Well, Remco is also not on the market for 2025, and he's being potentially conveyed to Red Bull BORA hansgrohe at the moment. So, what stops what stops a team from trying to rob Oscar Only from Picnic Postenel? Or is he worth robbing at the moment? That's also a question, because yes, he might have top 4 of the Tour de France, but it's not like he's suddenly a certainty for a podium in a Grand Tour either.
We forget that this robbing and leaving is when the rider's also an autonomous individual that has to want to.
Yeah.
Oscar Only just came fourth at the Tour de France. Oscar Only signed a long-term deal with Picnic Postenel because he obviously likes the team. He's performing in that environment. He has an English or British DS with him that presumably they get along well with. He's having a career breakout season. Maybe he's perfectly happy where he is. And the Remco situation is kind of often described in the media like Red Bull or these other teams are trying to poach him, and he's just like a third-party non-actor.
That's not true.
It's like, no, he is in these tours. He wants to leave, or is entertaining the idea.
Of course he's entertaining the idea, because you see it at the fact that we've had these rumors for 3 years. Like, that's a reality. But to that point, Patrick, Lipovic has just podiumed the Grand Tour, the Tour de France. Remco podiumed the Tour de France last year. This year was a failure. Primoz Roglic threw away as top 5, but also has the capabilities of top 5 in the Tour de France. Perhaps without the Giro going all out for the Tour de France, he could also fight for a podium, just hypothetically thinking. How in holy hell is this team potentially people managing if Remco Evenepoel goes to Red Bull BORA hansgrohe and has to compete between quotes with Lipovic and Roglic? How is the team going to people manage those 3 GC riders? That is a question that I actually don't think I have an answer to.
Sven van Tornhout. Well, that just got announced. So Rolf Aldag has been, by mutual agreement, the DS in the Tour de France is leaving the team. He's been there for a couple of years. Sven van Tornhout is coming in. It sounds like a sporting director. So with the overview of Devo team, junior team, World Tour team, scouting, recruitment, race plans, stars, everything. So that's what he's doing. So they're bringing him in, and he's going to solve it, Benji.
Okay. I'll be honest, when it comes to a sports director role itself, I wouldn't have had big confidence in Sven van Tornhout, but I'm willing to go into the sporting director role idea of him with a more open mind, because I don't know how he's going to do that in that role. So I'm curious how that will fare. He's had the relationship with Remco Evenepoel for the last 3 years, which didn't start off on a great foot when he was with the Leuven World Championship.
When he was liking tweets
team.
abusing Remco.
Yes, he was liking tweets abusing Remco about some articles about Remco, etc., that were negative about him, etc. So that was a very bad look for Sven Tornhout that day. I would assume that those conversations have happened between the two within that year of Leuven, and that they're on a good path forward since then, because they've had success since. In my personal opinion, more thanks to the Remco's individual strength than anything team-related there. But that relationship is important. But does that not does Sven van Toornout and Remco Evenepoel having a relationship not impact the potential? If you're Florian Lipovic and you see Sven van Toornout coming in and Remco Evenepoel coming in the year after you podium the Tour de France, you must not be feeling
And Klaas
overly
Lodewijk.
happy either.
And the full entourage.
Yeah.
I agree. Like, you'd be like, why is his buddy the main director at the Tour de France? Like when Klaas Lodewijk's doing the race plan for the Tour de France and they both go, Remco and Lipovic.
Yeah.
You think he's going to, like, human nature, he's not going to weight them equally. Who pays Klaas Lodewijk's salary if he goes there?
Well,
Remco pays his salary.
Remco Evenepoel being there.
Remco Evenepoel is why he has the job. And so that makes it a lot harder then for Lodewijk to be like, hey, Remco, actually, I think Lipovic is way better than you.
But I do think Remco Evenepoel needs people around him that are not yes men.
And in Van Torenhout's defense, Belgian Federation, one of the best organized federation, like as an overall structure. I don't know how much he is to credit for it, but that federation functions really, really well. So compared to other federations, so it's just a lot of changing parts, a lot of staff movements, and Red Bull's changing a lot. But you're right, Benji. Like, are they like, oh, should we have just stuck with Lipovic and doubled down on him? I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of races. If you're I see it more a problem in the Ardennes and the Van Hills of this world, being like, what the fuck? Like, I didn't come here to be a domestique in Liège-Bastogne-Liège.
In the last 1.5 years, when it comes to Red Bull, BORA, hansgrohe, and the way that team has changed, we've spoken a lot about them forming a classics team, them getting Van Hills. We're seeing them getting lots of riders that are very good individual riders. But throughout this entire year, we've seen in almost every single race that this team rode that the chemistry between those riders and the way they ride together is not in a way that can conclude with success. And in the classics, that was because half of the team wasn't riding for each other. In situations where they should be riding for each other, they chose the wrong leaders depending on the races. So that's also a team management issue in those races. Here at the Tour de France in week 1, there's co-leadership, but Lipovic was doing more of the work there. Then in week 2, we see moments where they're working well together, rolling attacks on only. In week 3, we see, I'll be honest, Patrick, we mentioned it before, but in stage 18 and 19, Red Bull, BORA, hansgrohe was doing their absolute best to lose the podium with Lipovic. I think that's the best way to describe it tactically in those 2 days.
Yeah.
But just in general, I've got the feeling that just because you get the best riders doesn't mean they all work well together. And that's the thing they need to figure out for next year. And if Sven van Toornout can figure that out, holy shit, he deserves double the amount of money he's probably being paid for this. Because then they're going to have massive success.
There's a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent there. Like we said, Pellizzari, Fisher Black, these are still young guys in their 20s or approaching their peak. Pithy. So, yeah. And then they got Finn coming up. So that is one of the most talent-stocked rosters. And like you say, they've just got to find a way to make it work. How would you rate this Tour de France, Benji, out of 10?
Oi. Patrick. Might this be the lowest Tour de France I've rated in the last few years? I feel like this might potentially be the case. Like, we've had some great Tour de France's. 2020 comes to mind, especially because of the final. 2022 was a pretty very good Tour de France. 2023 was then the confirmation of Vingegaard, but was kind of a walk in the park for Vingegaard more than it was an actual rivalry in that year, while 2024 was then the revenge of Tadej Pogacar and him destroying the field, and towards week 3 absolutely destroying the field, while this year also was once again Tadej Pogacar kind of destroying the competition. That's how I perceive this, but we went into the Tour de France 2024 with Vingegaard was from an injured position at Basque Country going into the Tour de France as an underdog, because that, despite in previous years destroying Tadej Pogacar, but also knowing that Tadej Pogacar could potentially be better in the areas where he had potential weaknesses, but there wasn't certainty yet at the start of the TTF 2024. While I've got this mixed feeling about this year's Tour de France, Patrick, where going into the race, I actually was pretty positive. I thought, okay, week 1's going to be explosive, regardless of the action in GC. Week 2, Visma Lease Bike will, regardless of the situation in GC, always keep trying. And I thought the same when it comes to week 3. Now, week 3 might have left a bit less in the plate than I necessarily hoped for. And I kind of felt a bit zoned out from the Tour de France in week 3 more than I would have hoped for. So I'm leaning towards 5, 5.5, 6 out of 10. Probably 5, 5.5. Is that too harsh?
I get a 5 out of 10. Yeah, it was. How many like historic, memorable stages were there?
Not a single one. Ventoux was good, but
Ventoux was good, but it still went to the break. My favorite stage was stage 4. We still had hope. We had Pog drop Vingegaard. Vingegaard comes back. Van der Poel comes back. Almeida gets Jorgensen attacks. I think Visma launched the climb before. I think it was a really exciting 20 minutes. It was kind of like a mini San Remo. Then Pog beats Van der Poel in the sprint. That was my favorite stage. My least favorite stage was probably the La Plan or La Loze stages. They were awful, I thought. In the feeling at the end of those stages on the final climb was not one of excitement.
I agree, and I think Côte de la Loze, if we had the actual Côte de la Loze, not this side of Côte de la Loze there, maybe that stage would have been a lot better. I'm also trying to ask the score of Luke if he can open the chat, because I want to hear his opinion on this Tour de France as well, because he's also a part of this podcast. And we also should thank Luke, by the way, because we are like the people on screen, but he's doing all the dirty work at the moment, trying to make this a viewable experience for everyone. So thanks to Luke as well. And his score for this Tour de France is a 4 out of 10. So he's even more depressed after this than we are, Patrick. But do we feel like we have hope towards next year that it might be changing?
No idea. It depends on the parcours. I think they got to bring back some more sprinting stages. Just when everything is special, nothing is special. And the general tenor of the riders after this race is this tour was overall just so hard that then they were just fucked. By week 3, they were just fucked. Everybody, Pog, Vingegaard, the teams, the guys trying to go in the breakaway, everyone's just cooked. And then you get kind of the damp ending on the final mountains, which is not the rider's fault. They're just cooked. So I think they got to bring back some more pure sprinter stages. I don't need to see like the Toulouse stage. It's just overkill. Like another of the same stage. Just have a sprint, or I don't know. I want to see. Well, there is a TTT, but they're always pathetically short. I want to see long individual flat time trials. Give Remco something to work with.
Is it time, Patrick? Is it time for Planche de Belleville to come back?
So yeah, sure.
How long has it been? 22
years. 22, yeah.
I think it's time, Patrick.
Like as a TT.
A Planche de Belleville stage. I'm starting to miss it.
I'm just missing sprint stages. There just were not enough sprint stages in this Tour de France, in my opinion. There needed to be another one in week 2, and especially when you take out Champs-Élysées.
75-kilometer team time trial, Patrick.
Yeah.
It's happening.
That'd be sick. And you can't just say it benefits the rich teams, because also Jayco Alula would want that. EF would want that, and Movistar would probably want that.
But as a whole, on average, it would benefit the rich teams.
On average, it benefits the richer teams, but you can still construct your team around it, and I would say the richer teams are able to buy better climbers that the mid-packs cannot, and have more climbing depth, but actually a little... No, they are a rich team. I don't know, like an FDJ has a lot of good rouleurs. They could put in a TTT, so I would like to see a TTT. But that was our recap of the Tour de France.
One more thing that I would like... Is it weird that descent finishes, the sport is kind of trying to step away from, even though in like a day or 2 days we have one at the Tour de France Van Wijk Zwift. Maybe as of recording, that is the case, but when this goes live, maybe it's already happened. But I do feel like I kind of miss like a mountain breakaway stage that is has a flat finish of like 20 kilometers of flat after the last mountain. Like proper mountains in the first 70% of the race. And then it tunes out a little bit towards the end. Because then you have an obvious breakaway stage. And not the tension between peloton and breakaway. Or do you think that would take away from?
So you mean like the Bilbao, Mühlberger, Simon Yates 2019 one?
2019. Let me take a look here for a second.
Stage 12.
Stage 12. I'm opening it as we speak. Bagnères de Bigorre is the one you go for. I would say half, yes, but I'm leaning more towards actual like massive mountains in the middle of the stage, more than just 2 in the last 30%.
Oh, like stage 15 of the Giro this year that was won by Carlos Verona, where you have like they did Monte Grappa and the Dory climb.
For example.
Yeah, I would like to see that too.
Anyway.
But apparently you can just win from the peloton against Pogačar now on a 90k stage on an uphill finish. So
that's great. Oh my God, Patrick. The transfers are coming in. We've had 3 transfers already, so we're going to need a weekly show in a small week. Patrick, are you okay with that? Yeah, we've had a few transfers on the 31st of July. Crazy, huh?
Extensions or transfers?
Well, transfers as in people from Dev Team going to the actual proper team.
No, do not.
Hey, we've got one. Matthias Kopecki from Novo Nordisk to Unibet Titema Rockets.
None of
the
teams,
only team that realized somehow.
None of the teams realized you could announce the transfers as soon as you've agreed them. You could do it on January 1.
But why would you on the 31st of July? Does it benefit you to do it as late as possible?
I think it doesn't help to do it for the rider on their incumbent team. You know, remember the Axel Zang Le Tour de France omission, not omission last year? You maybe want to avoid stuff like that happening. Yeah. But yeah, I think people should have done it straight after the tour, like Luke says. So, alrighty, that was our recap of the Tour de France. We're going to have the women's coverage later, of course, and then we'll have a big transfers roundup after the women's Tour de France finishes next week. So until then, ciao, ciao, ciao.